You ever feel like you're fighting an uphill battle against yourself? Like, why is it so hard to just do the right thing? It's almost like it's hardwired into us. Well, today we're going to break down two really big and honestly often confusing theological ideas that try to answer that very question: original sin and imputed sin. So let's dive right in. All right, here's the game plan. We're going to start with this universal problem, the struggle. Then we'll get into what the sources call Adam's twofold legacy. From there, we'll break down the key difference between our nature versus our legal standing before God. Then comes the solution, this amazing idea called the Great Exchange. We'll also touch on how different theological traditions see this, and then we'll put all the pieces together with something called the threefold imputation. It's going to be a lot, but we'll walk through it step by step. So, let's just start with that big question, the one that I think we can all relate to. Why is it such a struggle to consistently do what we know is right? I mean, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. It's a universal human thing, right? Well, according to the sources we're digging into, the answer doesn't actually start with us. It starts somewhere else entirely. Yeah, the explanation actually begins with a single ancient event, just one moment in the past, but one that had these, well, universal consequences. Think of it like a stone thrown into a pond, where the ripples just keep spreading, affecting every single person and shaping the very nature of that struggle we all feel. So, according to these theological sources, it all goes back to Adam. He's seen as what's called a federal head, which is just a fancy way of saying he was the representative for all of humanity. And from his very first act of disobedience, he passed down not one, but two distinct consequences. A devastating twofold legacy. Okay, so the first piece of that legacy, that's what we call original sin. And this is all about our nature. It's not something we do, it's something we are. The sources describe it as this inherited, kind of broken moral character. It's that built-in disposition, that natural pull towards sin that we're all born with. And then there's the second piece, imputed sin. Now, this is totally different. This isn't about our internal nature. It's about our external legal standing. Think of it like a courtroom. The sources explain that the legal guilt from Adam's one act was basically credited to everyone's account. It's about our official status before God. Okay, so getting this distinction is absolutely key. It's the difference between our internal character, who we are on the inside, and our external legal status, how we're officially seen. Nature versus standing. Let's break that down even more. All right, looking at this side by side really helps. On one side, you have original sin. That's our corrupt nature. It affects our internal character. The theological term is totally depraved, which doesn't mean we're as evil as we could possibly be, but that every part of us is affected by sin. On the other side, you have imputed sin. That's our guilty standing. It's external, a legal status. It means we stand condemned. So you see, one is an inherent condition. The other is an objective legal verdict. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? We're not sinners because we sin. We sin because we are sinners. It flips the script on how we usually think. Our actions, the sins we commit, they're the symptom, not the disease. The root cause is our nature. We do what we do because of what we are. Okay, I know imputed sin can sound a little abstract, so here's a great analogy. Think of it like inheriting a massive debt. You didn't go on the spending spree, you didn't take out the loan, but because you're part of the family, that debt is now legally credited to your account. It's an inherited liability. It's all about what the books say. So we've got this twofold problem, right? A broken nature on the inside and a guilty legal standing on the outside. Well, it makes sense that the theological solution would also be twofold. And this is where things get really incredible. It's a concept known as the Great Exchange. They call this double imputation, and it's basically a two-way street. First, all the sin of a believer is legally transferred or imputed to Jesus on the cross. It's put on his account. But then it goes the other way. Christ's perfect righteousness, his flawless record, is imputed right back to the believer. It's a total 180-degree reversal of our legal status. And this verse from 2 Corinthians is really the biblical bedrock for this whole idea. Listen to this. For our sake, he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. You can see both sides of the exchange perfectly right there in one sentence. So what does this imputed righteousness really mean? Here's the bottom line. It's God declaring a believer righteous, not because they are righteous, not because of anything they've done or ever could do, but solely because Christ's perfect life is credited to their account. It's a legal declaration based entirely on someone else's merit. It's a pure gift. Now, as you can probably guess, a doctrine this big is going to have some different interpretations. Not every Christian tradition sees this exactly the same way. So it's worth taking a quick, impartial look at how a few different streams of thought understand this idea of justification. Okay, so this chart kind of breaks it down. The Reformation tradition, which is what we've mostly been talking about, really focuses on righteousness being imputed. It's a one-time legal declaration. The Roman Catholic view tends to see it more as imparted or infused, meaning righteousness is put inside a person through the sacraments, making them actually inherently more righteous over time. And then you have the Wesleyan Arminian tradition. They agree with imputed righteousness, but they add a really important note of balance. They warn that if you only focus on the legal part, it can lead to people thinking they have a license to sin. They stress that a new legal standing ought to produce a new way of living. All right, let's pull all these pieces together and look at the whole picture. When you zoom out, the sources talk about not just a double, but actually a threefold imputation. It's a chain of events that stretches from the very beginning all the way to our redemption. And here it is, the whole story in 3 steps. First, Adam's sin is imputed to all of us. That's the problem. Second, a believer's sin is imputed to Christ. That's the payment. And third, Christ's righteousness is imputed back to the believer. That's the gift. You see, it's a complete narrative arc, from debt to payment to grace. So I want to leave you with this final thought. We live in a culture that is obsessed with earning our keep, with self-creation, with building our own identity and merit. So how does this idea of a completely given identity, an imputed one, clash with that? How does it challenge our deepest assumptions about what makes us valuable? It's a big question and definitely one worth wrestling with.